Well, I'm sitting here on my mooring on the Bewley River, having just sailed back from Lymington with a new standing rig. Funny thing, standing rigging. Back in the old days with the gaff rig boats I used to sail for most of my life, they all had galvanised rigging. It was something you could understand. You could see it. If it started to get rusty, you could have a look at it and you could get your knife and just very carefully pare away at it and see if the rust was just on the surface or if it went down into the core of the wire. And if it did, you had to get rid of it. And if you had to get rid of it, it was quite likely you could make some new stuff up yourself. It really was not that difficult. And it was a pleasure to work with, really. I used to love my standing rigging. Now that I have a modern yacht, I've got 1x19 wire like everybody else. And it's great stuff, really. I mean, I can put my white shirt on it and I don't get dirty. It's great. Everybody likes it. It seems to be very, very reliable and it's immensely strong for its weight. The trouble with it is, you never really quite know where you are with it when it gets to a certain age. And what is that age? Who can say? You see, I know guys who say, oh, you must replace it after 7 years, no matter what. Other people say, well, if you sail around the world, it's probably time to replace your standing rig. I know other people who've had rigs in a boat for 25 years. They've had the boat from new and they've never changed it. And they look at it and they have the surveyor have a look at it every 5 years and he says it's all right and there you go. It's fine, we'll stick with it. So where does that leave me as a conscientious owner? Well, I've decided to go with the middle road. I don't know how old this rig is. It might be 6 years old because that's how old the boat, that's how long I've had the boat, but it isn't. It was old when I bought the boat. I don't know how old. It might even be original. So it's got to go. I'm assuming it was 10 years old, so that's it. So I need an expert because I can't work on this stuff. So where do I go for an expert? Well, I could get a team of riggers in and work on the boat where she is. That wouldn't be a bad idea, but I felt I'd rather go to a big yard that had a rigging section with professional riggers with full facilities. I could get the boat alongside no problem. They'd probably even be able to lift the boat out while I was having the job done. It all made a lot of sense to me. So, question is, which yard do you go to? Well, gosh, me and yards, they go back a long way too, but there's one yard that keeps cropping up in my mind. Back in the 70s when I went ocean cruising first with Roz, a lot of people had old wooden boats in those days, and one particular brand of boat that I seemed to run into more than once was a boat called a Gauntlet, which was built by Berthon down in Lymington. The Gauntlet was a great boat, had a canoe stern, it was a powerful boat. It had been a racer in its day in the 1930s when they were built, and they made great cruisers. My mate Martin sailed across the Atlantic in one called Mures and he was pleased with it. So that sort of put the Berthon in the back of my mind. But then I got more personally involved because in the 80s, when my little girl, my daughter, was just about the age she wants to be learning to sail, sort of 7 years old or 8 years old. She'd crossed the Atlantic many times, but there's nothing like getting the tiller in your own hand, is there? So we thought we'd better get her a dinghy. And my mate Ian McGilvery said, I've got a dinghy under a pile of leaves in my boatyard. I reckon you can have it for 50 quid. Let's go and have a look at it. So we dug it out and it was a Lymington scow. And we found, as we cleaned it up, there was a lovely little plaque on the stern and it said it had been built by the apprentices at the Berthon boatyard in the 1930s. Well, couldn't be better, could it? Hannah learned to sail in the boat. We've still got her, or at least she has. And no doubt my grandson will learn to sail her in due course. Great little boat. But it was built by the apprentices. Well, we don't see many apprentices now, do we? But Berthon have always kept their apprentice scheme going. Brian May, who runs the yard there, who's a pal of mine, has always made a big thing of it, that he keeps an apprentice system going so that young men go along to the Berthon, they stay there for a number of years and they serve their time properly in the old-fashioned way with master craftsmen. And in the end, they come out, they either stay in the yard or they move on. But that's the way it is with apprentices. And I think that's really meritorious. I actually did some work with the apprentices. When was it? Last year. Brian had a motor yacht coming up from New Zealand against the trade winds, and he decided he would send some of his boat building apprentices to the boat to crew her so they could see what it was really like being at sea in a boat, so they knew what their work was all about. And their job was to crew the boat and to write a blog so everyone would know what was going on. And they did a great job crewing, and they were wonderful at woodwork and electronics and all the marvellous things they did, but they actually weren't great at putting sentences together. Some were better than others, but they were all good lads, and they became my great friends because Brian asked me to read through their blogs quickly when they came in and just tidy them up a little bit so they'd be more readily acceptable to people who were reading them. And I did that, and the lads were very, very patient with me, really. We got on really well, and it was a prime job. So that was berth on again. So here I am looking for somewhere to take the boat for standing rigging. Well, let's take it a berth on, let Brian's boys loose. Well, I talked to Rob, the chief rigger. He set Dave, who's just moved around the boat like a monkey really, except he was a bit better looking, and his mate Adam, and they came on board and basically tore the rig off and built me a new one. Took them a week, and they did a lovely job. They weren't working on my boat for a week, but I had the boat out of the water for a week, which suited me well. And the rig came back in. I watched them making all these swage fittings and everything that I had no idea how to do, and they just did it so quickly and so easily. You know, it's all right being a general marine factotum, but sometimes you can't beat handing over to the professionals. It was lovely, and the really nice thing was they were thinking as well as just doing the job. And they said to me, is there anything you want doing to the rig while it's out and while we've got the chance? And I said, well, there is actually. The mast's always been too upright on this boat. I think a mast needs a little bit of rake. Not too much to give a weather helm, but just a bit to sort of give the boat life and lift it up as you look at it. And they said, yeah, we can probably do that. I said, well, what about the mast partners? No, we'll leave them as they are. We'll do it by lengthening the forestay a bit. We'll just crank up on the backstay and it'll be fine. And they did. And do you know, it's like having a new boat. I can rely on my rig, I've got no worries, and every time I row away from the boat in my little red dinghy there and I look at her, my heart sings because I can see the way Dave and Adam have given the rig new life by raking it back a bit. So well done, Berthon. Well done, the riggers. Nice result.